My name is Emily Carter, and until a few months ago, I truly believed I understood the man I married. I believed in our home, our routines, our shared laughter, and the quiet comfort of a marriage built over 10 years. I believed that our trust was unshakable. But trust is fragile. Sometimes it shatters in an instant. And sometimes, it shatters because of a single sentence spoken by a stranger.
All right. Let me take you back to the moment everything changed.
It was a Saturday morning.
Nothing special.
Just me and a cup of coffee in the kitchen, sunlight warming the counter, the scent of hazelnut drifting through the air. My husband, Daniel, rushed past me, his tie half done, hair still damp from the shower.
Where is my phone?
I cannot find it anywhere, he said, patting his pockets. I pointed toward the living room. It fell off the couch earlier. The screen looked cracked. He groaned. I do not have time for this. The phone is glitching again. Can you take it to the repair shop today? I nodded.
He kissed my cheek.
Said he loved me.
Walked out the door.
Just another morning, or so I thought. I picked up his phone from the floor. The screen really was cracked spiderwebbed from the corner. When I pressed the power button, the display flickered, then turned a strange greenish white. At the time, I thought nothing of it. Looking back, I should have noticed the heaviness. The way the device seemed to hold a secret in its broken glass. But sometimes life hides its warnings in plain sight. Around noon, I drove to a small locally owned repair shop we had used before, a family-run place that always greeted us with warm smiles and honest service. A man in his 60s, Tom Henderson, ran it with his son. Tom had always reminded me of a retired schoolteacher, calm, patient, the kind of man you instinctively trusted. When I walked in, he glanced up from his workbench and smiled.
Emily, what brings you in today?
My husband's phone, I said, handing it over. The screen is cracked and it keeps flickering. He turned the device in his palm, examining it with a practiced eye.
Let me plug it in and run a quick diagnostic.
He connected the phone to one of his machines. The screen glowed faintly, flickered, then stabilized enough to show a boot-up menu. And that was when everything changed. Tom's expression shifted. Not dramatically. Not theatrically. Just a subtle tightening around the eyes, a seriousness that did not belong in a simple phone repair. His smile faded. He swallowed once. Then he looked at me in a way that made my skin prickle. Emily, he said quietly, can I speak with you in the back for a moment? I blinked. Is something wrong with the phone? He hesitated. Yes, he said. But not the way you think. My stomach dropped. Tom gestured toward a small doorway behind the counter. I followed him into a narrow hallway that led to a tiny staff room, bare walls, a coffee machine, a table scattered with tools. He closed the door behind us. Then he turned, took a breath, and said the words that changed the trajectory of my entire life. Cancel your credit cards and change the locks on your house. Today. Immediately. I stared at him, stunned. What?
Tom, what are you talking about?
He held up the phone. There are things on this device that no spouse should ever see. And there are things your husband has been preparing that put you in real danger. My heart lurched so violently I thought it might stop.
What do you mean, danger?
Daniel would never. Tom shook his head, cutting me off. Emily. Do not go back to your house until you have secured your finances and protected yourself. The room dimmed around me. My ears rang. I could barely form words.
Please tell me what you saw.
He hesitated again, carefully choosing the next sentence, weighing his professional boundaries against what he believed was his moral obligation. I cannot show you the exact files, he said, but I can tell you this, your husband has been documenting things.
Tracking things. Planning things.
You need to take this seriously.
For a moment, I could not breathe.
Daniel?
My Daniel, the man who made me coffee every morning, who kissed my forehead before bed, who promised to protect me all the days of his life? A man who might be dangerous to me? My voice came out a whisper.
Tom, are you sure? His expression softened, but his eyes remained serious. I wish I was wrong, but I have seen situations like this before. I recognize the signs. I cannot let you walk back into your life without warning you. I felt my throat tightening.
My vision blurred. My body was shaking.
I sank into a folding chair and pressed my hands against my temples. I do not understand, I whispered. Daniel has never hurt me. He has never lost his temper. He has never. Tom crouched down beside me, his voice gentle. Sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones who hide their intentions the longest. Emily, you need to be careful. The words sank into my chest like ice. It felt like someone had reached inside me and flipped my entire world upside down. I tried to push back against the rising panic, tried to cling to the image of my husband as I knew him.
Kind.
Supportive. Calm. But then Tom added something that shattered every remaining piece of my denial. There were searches on his phone, he said softly. Searches that suggest he is planning to access your financial accounts. Searches about disabling home security systems. Searches about methods of coercion. I froze. Coercion. A word that does not belong in a marriage. I felt nausea roll through me. He also downloaded a checklist, Tom continued, one used by people who prepare to leave their spouse suddenly, or force their spouse into dependency.
My breath trembled.
Dependency. Yes, he said.
Financial, emotional, physical.
Emily. Your husband may be building a strategy to isolate or overpower you. My skin went cold. I had seen documentaries about situations like this. I had listened to podcasts. Those stories always involved someone who thought, it could never happen to me. Suddenly, I understood how wrong that assumption was. My mind raced back through the last few months.
The strange moments.
The comments that felt odd at the time. The small behaviors I had brushed off. Daniel asking repeatedly about my savings accounts. Daniel suggesting we merge everything under his name for simplicity. Daniel insisting I give him copies of my personal passwords, just in case. Daniel mentioning twice that a woman he worked with lost everything in a divorce. At the time, I thought he was being cautious. Responsible. Preparing for life's unpredictability. But now
those memories twisted into something darker.
Had those been warnings? Signals I ignored? Red flags disguised as everyday conversation?
I pressed my fingertips into my eyes, trying to steady myself.
What do I do? I whispered.
Tom, what should I do right now?
His reply came without hesitation.
Protect yourself.
First financially, then physically. Tom walked me through the steps carefully, as if speaking to someone whose life depended on precision. Call your bank and freeze your joint accounts. Cancel every card he might have access to. Change your passwords, email, banking, cloud storage, utilities. Change the locks on your home today. Do not confront him until you are safe. Every word he spoke pushed me further into a reality I did not want to accept. Do I need to go to the police? I asked. Not yet, he said. But you may soon. And you should not go home until you understand the scope of the danger.
The scope of the danger.
That sentence echoed in my skull like thunder. I stood slowly, gripping the table for balance.
I feel sick, I whispered.
I feel like my entire life is collapsing.
Tom placed a steady hand on my shoulder. Emily, listen to me.
You are not overreacting.
You are not imagining things. And you are not alone.
You are doing the right thing. His kindness almost broke me. Almost. Because then came the realization that pulled the air from my lungs. If my husband was truly planning something, he had chosen to do it to me.
Not a stranger.
Not an enemy. To me. His wife. The betrayal was a knife I could not yet feel fully, but I could sense its blade pressing against my heart. Tom handed me the phone back carefully. I am wiping the diagnostic logs, he said. He will not know it was checked. Thank you, I whispered.
For everything.
He nodded, expression solemn. Take care of yourself, Emily. And please, do not ignore your instincts. I stepped out of the repair shop and into the afternoon sunlight. But the world no longer felt bright. It felt sharp, uncertain, dangerous. The phone felt heavy in my hand, as if it contained the truth about a man I did not recognize anymore. I stood on the sidewalk, trying to steady my breathing. Then I took out my own phone and dialed my bank. My voice trembled as I spoke. I need to cancel my cards immediately.
And just like that,
the unraveling of my marriage began. Not with a confrontation. Not with a fight. But with a quiet, devastating realization. The person I slept beside for 10 years might be planning to destroy my life. And I had no idea why. I sat in my car outside the repair shop for what felt like an eternity. My hands were trembling against the steering wheel. My chest felt tight, like someone had tied a rope around my lungs. And the familiar world I had lived in for a decade, suddenly felt foreign. I closed my eyes and whispered to myself,
"Do not fall apart."
Not here. But the truth was already clawing its way through me. If Tom was right, if Daniel was planning something against me, my home was no longer safe. My marriage was no longer real. And the man I trusted most might be preparing to become my enemy. After freezing our joint accounts, I cancelled every credit card with my name on it. Then I called my sister, Hannah. When she heard the tremor in my voice, she answered in a panic. "Emily? What is wrong? You sound terrified." I hesitated. How could I explain something I barely understood myself? "I cannot stay at my house tonight," I whispered. "I need to stay with you." She did not ask for details. Not at first. "Grab whatever you need and come over," she said firmly. "I will make up the guest room." Her voice cracked, but she tried to hide it. "Emily, are you safe right now?" "I think so," I said. "I am still in my car." "Then come here," she said. "We will figure it out together." I drove back toward my neighborhood with the kind of alertness people describe during near-death experiences. I checked my rearview mirror constantly, even though deep down I knew Daniel was still at work. But fear is irrational. It fills your mind with shadows and threats and worst-case scenarios. What if he came home early? What if he already sensed something was off? What if he knew I had taken his phone to the repair shop? That last thought made my pulse spike. When I pulled into the driveway, I did not park in the garage. I left the car running, just in case I needed to escape quickly. I entered the house with the same mindset someone might have breaking into a stranger's home, quiet, cautious, hyper-aware. Everything looked normal. The couch.
The framed photos.
The half-empty mug Daniel left on the counter that morning. Our life, neatly arranged and deceptively peaceful. But now that peace felt staged.
Artificial. Like a set piece hiding rotten wood underneath.
I grabbed a duffel bag from the hall closet and began packing. Clothes.
Toiletries. Important documents.
And my laptop. As I moved through the bedroom, something strange happened.
My senses felt sharper, my mind quieter.
It was as if some part of me, some primal survival instinct, had taken over. I realized that if Daniel truly had plans I did not know about, he might not simply accept me walking away.
Men in stories like this never do.
I checked under the bed, not for danger, but for anything of his that might hint at what Tom saw on the phone.
A notebook.
A folder. Anything. Nothing. Still, the air in the room felt wrong, heavy, charged with an energy I could not explain. I zipped the bag and turned toward the door. And that was when my phone buzzed. My heart nearly stopped. Daniel. Calling. The screen lit up with his name, the name that once made me smile every time I saw it. Now it filled me with dread. Across the top of the screen were 10 missed calls.
10.
I swallowed hard, my throat tight.
I let the call go to voicemail.
Then I listened.
Voicemail 1. Hey just checking in.
Did the phone place say how long the repair would take?
Normal. Casual.
Deceptively harmless.
Voicemail 2. Emily, call me back. Something came up at work.
I need the phone tonight. His tone was sharper.
Impatient. Voicemail 3.
Why are you not answering? This is not funny.
Pick up.
A cold pressure tightened in my chest.
Voicemail 4.
Emily, I know you have my phone. I know where you went. Call me back. Now. My hands went cold.
Voicemail 5.
You need to answer the phone.
Immediately.
There was no anger in his voice.
Just something worse.
Calm. Controlled. Calculated. The same tone he used when closing business deals, negotiating contracts, or talking about people he did not respect. I deleted the voicemail and grabbed my bag. I needed to leave. Now. I stepped outside and locked the door behind me. As I turned toward my car, something in the corner of my eye caught my attention. My heart dropped. Daniel's car was pulling around the corner. He was home. Early. I froze. For a split second, I did not know what to do.
Fight, flight, or freeze. My body chose freeze.
Then instinct slammed into me. Run. I sprinted to my car, threw the bag inside, and slammed the door shut just as Daniel pulled into the driveway. He stepped out of his car. Our eyes met. And in that moment, every doubt I had left evaporated. Daniel did not look confused. He did not look curious. He looked angry. No, determined. His jaw was clenched. His eyes were sharp. And he walked toward my car with a purpose that terrified me. I turned the key.
The engine roared.
I backed out so fast the tires screeched.
Daniel yelled something I could not hear over the sound of my heartbeat hammering in my ears.
I did not wait to find out what he wanted. I sped away. When I arrived at Hannah's house, she rushed outside before I even knocked. Emily. Oh my God, what happened? I collapsed into her arms.
Everything, I whispered. Everything happened.
Inside, she made tea the way she always did when I was upset, chamomile with a bit of honey. She sat beside me on the couch, waiting until I could breathe normally. Then she asked, "Tell me everything." So I did. I told her about the repair shop.
Tom's warning.
The searches found on Daniel's phone.
The voicemails.
Seeing him pull up as I was leaving the house. The look in his eyes. When I finished, she stared at me, horrified.
Oh my God, Emily.
This is not normal. This is not safe. You cannot go back there. I know.
Do you want me to call the police? I shook my head.
Not yet. I need to understand what is going on. I need proof. If Daniel really planned something, I cannot go in blind. She grabbed my hand.
You are not alone in this.
For the first time all day, I felt a flicker of relief, a reminder that I still had someone on my side. But it was fleeting. Because the truth was this. Until I understood what Daniel was planning, I would not be safe anywhere. Later that night, as Hannah slept in the guest room, I lay awake scrolling through my laptop, unable to silence the storm in my mind. I opened Daniel's email. I should not have. But fear justified actions I once would have called intrusive. Most of his inbox was ordinary. Receipts. Work messages. Spam. Then I found a folder titled Personal Projects. Inside were subfolders with harmless names. Home budget. Insurance. Miscellaneous. But one folder stood out like a drop of blood on white cloth. Plan B. My stomach dropped. My hand hovered over the trackpad, shaking. I clicked. Inside were documents, spreadsheets, and notes. The first one was titled Dependency Strategy Outline.
My breath caught in my throat.
It was a list. A step-by-step plan. With dates.
Bullet points.
And notes written in Daniel's tone, cold, organized, methodical. The items included shift accounts to single management, encourage withdrawal from social circle, reduce personal autonomy, limit independent access to finances, establish emotional reliance, prepare legal position, execute decisive separation or containment. Containment. That word made my hands go numb. My eyes blurred as I read the last line he typed. When the time is right, initiate the transition. She cannot resist if weakened first. I stared at the screen, unable to move. The man I married did not simply lie to me. He did not simply hide something. He was planning to dismantle my life. Piece by piece. Step by step. I leaned back and covered my mouth to stop myself from screaming. This was no longer a suspicion. No longer a warning. It was proof. I printed the documents. gathered everything into a file, and called Hannah, despite the late hour. She rushed into my room.
Emily, are you all right?
I handed her the papers. She read them slowly. Her expression shifted from confusion to horror to fury. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You need to take this to the police. Immediately." For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something stronger than fear. Rage. Rage at the man who vowed to protect me.
Rage at the lies. Rage at the manipulation.
Rage at the danger he had planned to become. I took a breath. "I am ready," I said.
Tomorrow morning, we go to the police.
Hannah squeezed my hand. "You are doing the right thing." I nodded. But part of me knew. This was only the beginning. Daniel would not let me go easily. And whatever he had planned, he would not stop now that he realized I had run.
The storm had just begun. The next morning, the world felt strangely quiet. Sunlight slid through the curtains in soft lines.
I could hear the faint hum of traffic outside Hannah's house, the distant bark of a dog, the clink of dishes in the kitchen as she made coffee. For a few seconds, I almost forgot. Then I saw the printed pages on the nightstand. The folder that held Daniel's Plan B. His strategy. His intent. And the reality rushed back in. The man I married had not simply thought about leaving. He had planned to dismantle my autonomy, to weaken me, to ensure that if he walked away, he would do so with every advantage and I would be left dependent, powerless, contained. I sat up slowly, my body heavy with the weight of that knowledge. Today, I was going to the police. Today, I was going to speak the truth out loud. Hannah drove. I stared out the passenger window, watching the city pass in a blur of brick buildings, trees, and strangers who had no idea that inside one of these cars sat a woman whose life had split open overnight. When we pulled into the parking lot of the police station, my hands began to shake. Hannah noticed. "You do not have to do this alone," she said.
"I am going in with you." I nodded, grateful.
Inside, the fluorescent lights felt harsh. The air smelled faintly of coffee, paper, and something metallic. A woman at the front desk looked up with a professional but kind expression. "Good morning. How can we help you?" My voice wavered, but I forced the words out. "I need to speak to someone about a potential domestic situation. It is not physical yet. But I believe my husband is planning something dangerous." The woman's eyes softened in a way that told me she had heard similar sentences before. "Of course. Please have a seat. I will call someone from our Domestic Violence and Family Protection Unit." Those words, domestic violence, wrapped around me like a cold band.
The label felt unreal, almost misapplied.
Daniel had never laid a hand on me. But then I remembered the document. Dependency strategy.
Containment.
Danger does not always arrive with bruises. Sometimes it begins on a spreadsheet. A female officer in her 40s introduced herself as Sergeant Miller. She led us into a small interview room with a table, 3 chairs, and a recording device in the corner. "I just want to let you know," she said gently, "that this conversation is being recorded for your protection and for documentation. You are not under investigation. You are seeking help. Do you understand?" "Yes," I said, my throat tight. She nodded. "Whenever you are ready, tell me what has been happening." So I did. I told her about the phone repair shop. About Tom's warning. About his exact words, "Cancel your cards and change the locks." About the search history Tom had seen. About Daniel's strange questions over the last few months. About the voicemails. About seeing him pull into the driveway as I escaped. About the folder on his computer labeled Plan B. About the document inside that spelled out his intentions. Sergeant Miller listened without interrupting, her face calm but focused. When I finished, my hands were clenched so tightly my nails had left crescent marks in my palms. "May I see the documents?" she asked. I slid the folder across the table. She read silently. Her jaw tightened. She looked up at me with a gravity that made my pulse pound harder. "Emily," she said slowly, "you were absolutely right to come here." Relief and terror collided in my chest. "So I am not overreacting?" No, she said firmly. You are in the early stages of what we often see in coercive control cases. This document shows intent. It shows planning. He may not have physically harmed you yet, but his strategy is to isolate you, weaken your independence, and position himself to hold all the power. The truth of her words landed heavy but clear. What can I do? I asked softly. She leaned forward. You can continue what you already started. You have frozen accounts. That is good. You have left the home. Even better. The next step is legal protection. Can I get a restraining order based on this? I asked. Yes, she said. This will help support a request for a protective order, especially combined with your testimony and the witness statement from the technician who saw the phone. We will need his statement as well. I exhaled shakily. I feel like my entire life is turning into a file. She gave a small, sympathetic smile. Sometimes paperwork is the only shield the system gives us. But it is a shield. And we are going to use it. For the first time, I felt a faint glow of something other than fear. I felt the beginning of agency. After we finished with the formal statements, Sergeant Miller said, "There is one more thing to consider. If you are comfortable, we may want to record any further communication from your husband. Phone calls, visits, anything. It can provide additional evidence of his mindset and potential escalation." The idea of speaking to Daniel made my stomach twist. "I do not want to see him," I said. "You do not have to," she replied. "But if he reaches out, do not engage alone. Call us. Call your sister. Never be isolated with him." I nodded slowly. As if summoned by the conversation, my phone buzzed. Daniel. Again. I stared at the screen. "Do you want to let that go to voicemail?" Hannah asked. I looked at Sergeant Miller. She considered for a moment. "Let it go to voicemail," she said. "We will see what he chooses to say when he believes you are avoiding him." The message notification appeared. I played it on speaker. "Emily," Daniel's voice said, controlled but edged with irritation, "this has gone far enough. I know you have taken my things, and I know you have been in my files. You do not understand what you think you saw. We need to talk. Get back home. Now." There was a pause. Then, in a lower tone, "You are making this harder than it needs to be." The room seemed to shrink. Sergeant Miller's eyes hardened. "That is a warning," she said calmly. "It is subtle, but it is there. Pressure. Commanding language. No recognition of your feelings or safety." Hannah looked at me, her expression stricken. "You are not going anywhere near that house," she said. "I agree," Sergeant Miller added. "From this moment on, you treat your home as a potential danger zone. If you need to retrieve belongings, you do so with police escort." I swallowed. "Will you tell him anything?" I asked. "Will you contact him?" "Not yet," she said. "First, you file for a protective order. Then your attorney and our office can coordinate. For now, you focus on staying safe." The next week was a blur of paperwork, consultations, and quiet hours where my mind replayed every moment of my marriage through a new lens. I remembered the early years with Daniel. The warmth. The laughter. The nights on the couch watching movies. Those memories hurt the most, because they now felt like evidence of a man who had once chosen to love me and later chose to treat me like a project. I moved into the guest room at Hannah's house temporarily. She cooked. She listened. She let me cry when the weight of betrayal grew too heavy to carry. Meanwhile, Daniel called less and emailed more. The emails were cold. Calculated. A blend of vague threats and false reason.
You are misunderstanding everything.
You are overreacting. You have no right to take my property. We will resolve this one way or another. I forwarded every message to Sergeant Miller and my newly hired attorney. Each piece of communication became another brick in the growing wall of documentation that stood between me and the man I once trusted. One afternoon, about 10 days after my visit to the police station, my attorney called. "Emily, your husband's lawyer has reached out. Daniel wants to meet to discuss the situation." My chest tightened. In person? I asked. Yes, he said. However, if you agree, the meeting would take place at a neutral location, with counsel present, and I strongly recommend that a law enforcement liaison be aware of it. Do I have to see him? I asked quietly. You do not have to do anything, he said. But in some cases, allowing one controlled conversation can clarify intentions and avoid escalation. It is your choice. I thought about it. For the first time since this began, I felt something new. I did not just want to avoid Daniel. I wanted him to see that I knew. That I was not blind, not naive, not weak. I wanted him to look at me and realize that the woman he had treated like a pawn had stepped off the board entirely. I took a deep breath. I will do it, I said. But exactly as you described. Neutral place. Lawyers present. And Sergeant Miller informed. Done, he said. We met in a conference room at my attorney's office. The room was simple. White walls. A long table. 4 chairs. I arrived with my attorney and a quiet, steady resolve I did not quite recognize as mine yet. Daniel walked in a few minutes later, accompanied by his lawyer. The moment I saw him, my stomach flipped. He looked exactly the same. The same neatly trimmed hair. The same pressed shirt. The same watch I had given him for our anniversary. But now, every familiar detail made my skin crawl. He sat across from me, his expression carefully composed. Emily, he said calmly, what are you doing? There was no concern in his voice. No fear. Only annoyance. I met his gaze. I am protecting myself, I said. His jaw tightened slightly. You ran out of the house. You cancelled accounts. You invaded my personal files. I found those files because I was afraid, I said. And I had reason to be. His lawyer began to speak, but my attorney raised a hand. Let her finish, he said. I pulled out the printed dependency strategy and placed it on the table between us. Daniel's eyes flickered for the first time. This, I said, my voice steady, is not the work of a loving husband preparing for the future. This is a blueprint for control. He glanced at the paper, then back at me. You misunderstood, he said. Those are hypothetical notes. Ideas I was exploring. About weakening me emotionally, I said. About isolating me from my friends. About shifting control of our finances entirely to you. About containment. Those are not hypotheticals, Daniel. Those are plans. He shrugged slightly, a gesture that made my skin crawl. You always were dramatic, Emily. Something inside me snapped. Do not do that, I said sharply. Do not sit there and pretend this is about me being dramatic. A technician saw your search history and was so disturbed that he pulled me into a back room and told me to cancel my cards and change my locks. That is not drama. That is danger. Silence fell. His lawyer shifted uncomfortably. My attorney remained still, watching Daniel closely. Daniel's expression changed. Not much. Just enough. The mask slipped. For a second, I saw it. The coldness. The calculation. The quiet certainty that he had believed he could outmaneuver me completely. You were supposed to trust me, he said, his voice lower now. You have always trusted me. That trust was based on the belief that you saw me as your partner, I replied. Not your project. His hand curled slightly on the table. So what is your plan, Emily? He asked. To destroy my reputation? To paint me as a monster? I shook my head. My plan is very simple, I said. To make sure you never get the chance to execute yours. I looked at him for a long moment. You lost the right to my trust when you started drafting strategies to dismantle my life. In the weeks that followed, things moved quickly. I obtained a protective order. We began divorce proceedings. My attorney and the police worked together to document the full extent of Daniel's plans. He tried at first to fight everything. To claim that the documents were taken out of context. To insist that he had never laid a hand on me, so he could not possibly be dangerous. But the world is slowly learning that danger is not always physical. The judge read the dependency strategy. He listened to my testimony. He heard Tom's statement about the phone. And he saw enough. Restrictions were put in place. Daniel was ordered not to contact me directly. All communication had to go through lawyers. He was furious. But his anger, finally, could not reach me. I had a new set of locks. New accounts. New boundaries. And a new understanding of my own strength. It has been many months since that first day in the phone repair shop. Sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night with my heart pounding, my mind replaying the moment Tom looked at me and said, "Cancel your cards and change the locks." Sometimes I still grieve the marriage I thought I had, the man I believed Daniel was, the future I once imagined. But more often now, I feel something different. I feel relief. I feel clarity. I feel gratitude that I listened to the warning before it was too late.
I am rebuilding my life slowly. I rent a small apartment of my own.
I work. I see friends more often. I go to therapy.
I am learning to trust myself again.
Not other people. Not yet. Myself. My intuition. My judgment. My worth. If you are watching this and you feel that something is wrong in your relationship, if you feel that someone you love is quietly tightening their control over your life, please hear me. You are not crazy. You are not overreacting. You are not dramatic. You are picking up on things that your nervous system understands before your mind wants to accept them. Trust that. If your partner tries to isolate you, control your money, demand your passwords, monitor your movements, or make you feel smaller over time, that is not love. That is strategy. You deserve safety. You deserve autonomy. You deserve a life that is not being quietly dismantled behind your back. If your instincts are screaming at you, listen.
Reach out to someone you trust.
Talk to a professional. Talk to the police if you need to. You do not have to wait for a bruise to call something abuse. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If any part of my experience resonates with you, or reminds you of something you have gone through, you are not alone. You can share your story in the comments if you feel safe doing so. Sometimes seeing your own feelings reflected in someone else's words can be the first step toward change. If you want more stories like this, stories about truth, survival, red flags, and reclaiming your power, feel free to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you do not miss future uploads. Your support helps these stories reach the people who may need them the most, often in the very moment they need them.
Take care of yourself. Take care of your heart. And if something feels wrong, please remember,
you are allowed to change the locks. On your door. On your life. On who has access to you. You are worth protecting.